My husband Mark handed me divorce papers and told me I had 48 hours to get out. My new partner owns this place now, he announced. You're leaving with nothing. He said it loud enough for the whole street to hear, just to break me. I just smiled. Because the moment she walked into that house, she discovered a truth that ruined everything. 48 hours. That was the deadline my husband Mark gave me to dismantle 8 years of our life together and vanish from what he was now calling his girlfriend's home. My name is Emily Vance. I was standing on my own porch on a Thursday afternoon when Mark decided to turn our separation into a public shaming. He waved the divorce papers around like a winning lottery ticket, his voice booming so that half the neighborhood could catch every syllable. You're leaving with nothing, Emily. Sophia owns everything here now. The neighbors were definitely watching. Mrs. Gable, out with her beagle. The Millers in the middle of bringing in their groceries. A couple of teenagers on bikes who had paused to soak up the free drama. Mark wanted a crowd. He needed them to witness me being humiliated, cast aside, and utterly defeated. Before we go any further, I want to thank you for joining me on this path to justice. If you believe in the power of truth and meticulous planning when faced with betrayal, please think about subscribing. It's totally free and it helps our community grow. Now, let's watch how this all unraveled. But this is the part Mark didn't know. While he was busy orchestrating his grand new beginning with his 26-year-old performance strategist, I had been orchestrating something of my own. While he thought he was playing a simple game of checkers, I had been mapping out the entire chessboard. When exactly did Sophia acquire this property? I asked, my voice slicing through his theatrical performance. I seemed to have missed the closing on that. His bravado wavered, just for a second, just enough, because the home he was so dramatically evicting me from, the house he was so certain his girlfriend now owned, it was held by a family trust he had no idea existed, and when Sophia waltzed in, ready to claim her grand prize, she was about to face a reality that would obliterate every lie she had so carefully constructed. I had 48 hours until she was scheduled to move in, 48 hours to set in motion the plan I had been carefully assembling for the past 8 weeks. But for you to understand how I ended up here, standing on my own front steps while my husband tried to dispose of me like yesterday's news, you have to understand the last 8 years. You have to understand the life I believed I was building before I found out it was all a house of cards. Mark and I met at a professional mixer a decade ago. He was in investment banking, structuring complex deals for corporate clients who trusted him with their futures. I was a mergers and acquisitions attorney, the person corporations hired to find the hidden liabilities and loopholes in what seemed like ironclad agreements. We connected over a shared language of risk mitigation and due diligence. He charmed me with stories of high-pressure negotiations. I impressed him with my own war stories of deals that saved clients from financial ruin. Our wedding was tasteful, not over the top. 175 guests at a country club in the suburbs, a honeymoon in Tuscany, and a mutual pledge to build a solid, enduring life together. We moved into the Maplewood Heights house 6 years ago, a beautiful colonial with great character in a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone else's business. Mark believed we bought it jointly. In reality, I had purchased it outright through the Vance Family Trust, using an inheritance from my grandfather's estate. But Mark never bothered with the details. He just assumed we had joint ownership because that's what married people do, and I never saw a reason to correct him. Back then, it didn't feel important. My mother, Diane, had been adamant about the trust. A career forensic auditor, she'd spent her life tracing money through the most tangled corporate webs, finding the numbers people tried desperately to bury. She had raised me on her own after my father passed away when I was a teenager, and she instilled in me a need for thoroughness, for spotting patterns, for trusting my gut when something felt off, and for always having a legal firewall, even when it seemed paranoid. Emily, she had warned me when I told her I was buying the house, always read what isn't on the page. Put the house in the trust. Keep that asset firewalled. You just never know when you'll need that kind of protection. At the time, I thought she was being overly cautious. My marriage felt strong. Mark was a devoted husband. We had a life that looked perfect on the surface. We had Sunday brunches at the club where Mark would network and I would make polite conversation. We threw summer barbecues where we served expensive steaks to neighbors who debated property taxes and the quality of local schools. We took annual trips to Nantucket where we'd walk the beaches and pretend our marriage was as idyllic as the postcard-perfect lighthouses. Our neighborhood was a place of carefully polished exteriors. Mrs. Gable walked her beagle past our home every single morning at 7:20, always with a wave and a comment about the weather, never letting on that her own marriage had quietly imploded a few years prior. The Millers threw the annual block party where kids played in sprinklers and adults sipped wine from plastic cups, all while carefully avoiding the topic of their eldest son's recent stint in rehab. Young couples pushed $1,000 strollers down the sidewalks, their futures seemingly plotted out in predictable 5-year increments, none of them willing to admit that behind the perfect facade, everyone was silently wrestling with their own demons. I really thought Mark and I were the exception. I thought we had something real beneath our own manicured surface. The first sign of a crack appeared on a Tuesday night in early October. Mark came home nearly 2 hours late, smelling of a very specific, expensive perfume that I didn't own. He said he'd been at a late dinner with a client, but the collar of his shirt had a faint shimmer of makeup on it, a shade of bronze I would never wear. I didn't say anything right away. I just did what my mother had taught me to do. I observed, I listened. I started to read the empty spaces between his words. "Client dinner went long," he said, pulling off his tie and avoiding my eyes. "You know how these high-stakes deal-makers are. They want to talk through every last detail over a bottle of overpriced scotch." I just nodded, smiled, and asked if he was hungry. But my brain was already filing away the details. The way he turned his back to me as he took off his jacket. The way he went straight upstairs to the bedroom instead of sitting with me in the living room as he always did. The fact that the shower ran for a full 20 minutes instead of his usual 10. The makeup shimmer was gone by the time he came downstairs, his shirt collar perfectly clean, but I had already taken a picture of it with my phone. Mark's sudden obsession with performance optimization started the following week. He joined a high-end fitness club in Summit Creek that cost more per month than a car payment. A whole new wardrobe of designer athletic wear started appearing in our closet, from brands I'd never heard of, with price tags I only saw by accident before he cut them off. An array of protein powders in exotic flavors like volcanic cherry ignition and alpine mint recovery took over our kitchen counter. He couldn't stop talking about his new performance strategist, Sophia. He said she was helping him unlock his true potential, recalibrate his focus, and align his professional ambitions with his physical well-being. "She's a visionary, Emily," he'd say, while blending a foul-smelling green concoction one morning. "She really gets the synergy between physical discipline and financial acuity. Most coaches just give you rah-rah speeches, but Sophie understands the entire ecosystem of success." I asked him what this life-altering wisdom was costing us. He just waved my question away. "It's an investment in myself, Emily. You, of all people, should appreciate the importance of professional development." At first, I tried to rationalize it. This was just a classic midlife crisis. Mark was 43. Maybe he'd caught a glimpse of his own father in the mirror one morning and panicked. The gym, the supplements, the fancy new clothes. They were all textbook symptoms of a man grasping at his youth. But then the business trips began. Scottsdale at the end of October, Miami in early November, Austin, Texas just before Thanksgiving. When I questioned him about the trips, Mark had perfectly plausible reasons. A tech conference in Scottsdale, a client acquisition meeting in Miami, a potential merger exploration in Austin. But the credit card statements told a different story. His Scottsdale hotel bill included charges for a 2-person spa package and a room service order for 2. The Miami trip featured expenses from a boutique hotel known for its romantic getaways and reservations at restaurants that specialized in candlelit dinners. The Austin trip showed purchases from a high-end lingerie shop and several wine bars. My stomach twisted, but my mind stayed clear. This was the moment my mother had prepared me for, the point where raw emotion threatens to overwhelm logic and where pain can cloud your judgment. I took a deep breath, centered myself, and kept documenting everything. I could have confronted him then and there. I could have walked into the bathroom and thrown the credit card statements in his face while he stood there wrapped in a towel, exposed and trapped. I could have screamed and demanded the truth, demanded an apology. But my mother's voice was a clear echo in my mind. Never reveal your hand until you understand the entire game. So, I started my own quiet investigation. I checked Mark's location through our family phone plan, a feature he had clearly forgotten we'd set up years ago. The pattern became clear very quickly. He was at the Summit Creek gym 5 days a week, sure, but there were also frequent stops at a luxury apartment building in a neighboring town, an apartment that wasn't registered in his name or mine. I started meticulously cross-referencing his expenses, highlighting every suspicious transaction. Mark had been making regular cash withdrawals, $500 here, $1,000 there, always in amounts small enough that he thought they would fly under my radar. In total, they added up to nearly $25,000. And then I found the payments to SC Strategies, a total of $20,000 over 4 months, categorized as strategic consulting services. But when I looked up SC Strategies online, I found nothing. No website, no corporate registration, no tax ID number. The company simply didn't exist. That was the moment I knew this was more than just a simple affair. This was something far more calculated, more structured, and infinitely more predatory. My mother came to stay with us that weekend. We sat in my kitchen, sipping coffee while Mark was at the gym, and I laid it all out for her. She listened without saying a word, her forensic auditor's brain processing the patterns and connecting the dots. "Emily," she said when I finished, "men like Mark don't just have affairs. They create systems. If he's funneling money to this woman, I guarantee he's not the only one." Together, we found Sophia Croft's Instagram profile. It was a curated masterpiece of yoga poses on exotic beaches, perfectly styled green smoothies, and inspirational quotes layered over sunrise vistas. Her bio described her as a certified life coach and performance strategist, building her brand from the ground up. But her photos told a completely different story. She wore designer athletic gear that cost a small fortune. She took luxury trips to places like Bali, Tulum, and the Amalfi Coast. She drove a new white Porsche Macan. She ate at restaurants where the appetizers cost more than my weekly groceries. "This is not a struggling entrepreneur," my mother said softly. "This is a woman with multiple, undeclared revenue streams. Dig deeper. Find out who else is funding this lifestyle." The game was far bigger than I had ever imagined. And now, standing on my own porch with 48 hours until Sophia was set to move into my house, I was more than ready to play. I walked up the stairs to our bedroom, moving with a deliberate calm, letting Mark sweat it out on the porch with his audience of stunned neighbors. My briefcase felt heavier than it should have. It wasn't the legal documents inside. It was the weight of the events I was about to unleash. The bedroom was exactly as I had left it that morning. Our king-sized bed, the duvet still rumpled on Mark's side because he never bothered to straighten it. The dresser with his collection of expensive colognes arranged like little trophies. The closet where his new designer workout gear was now taking up more space than his business suits. Everything looked so normal, so comfortable, so untouched. But nothing was normal anymore. I placed my briefcase on the bed and opened my laptop. Through the window, I could see Mark still on the front lawn, his phone glued to his ear. He was probably calling Sophia, boasting about his triumphant performance and how decisively he had handled his soon-to-be ex-wife. He was probably expecting her to praise him. The thought made my jaw clench. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "Is it happening?" I typed back a quick reply. "He just served me with divorce papers on the front lawn, told the whole neighborhood I have 48 hours to get out of Sophia's house." The 3 dots appeared instantly, then her reply. Perfect. Execute the plan. I'm so proud of you. I opened my laptop and found the email draft I had prepared 3 days earlier. The subject line was simple: regarding Sophia Croft's private coaching services. 4 email addresses were listed in the recipient field: Jessica Sterling, Olivia Rossi, Dr. Catherine Reed, and Michael Park. 4 people whose lives were about to collide with mine in a way none of us could have ever anticipated just a few months ago. The attachments were all lined up and ready to go. Financial records showing Sophia's payment patterns from multiple sources. Screenshots of her text message exchanges with each of them, which I had obtained through less than traditional but entirely legal means. Location data that proved she was rotating between all 5 of her targets on a rigid, predictable schedule, and a master timeline that laid out her entire scheme in color-coded, undeniable detail. I read the body of the email one last time. Dear Miss Sterling, Ms. Rossi, Dr. Reed, and Mr. Park, I believe we share a mutual acquaintance, and I think it's time we had a conversation about the specialized performance strategy program that has been enriching our lives and more notably draining our bank accounts. Please review the attached documentation. I propose we speak this evening. Best regards, Emily Vance. It was professional, direct, and impossible to ignore. I glanced at the clock. 4:32 p.m. My plan was to send it at precisely 4:47 p.m., the exact moment when most professionals were winding down their day but hadn't yet left their desks. It was the perfect window to ensure it would be read immediately, not lost in the evening flood of emails. I heard the front door open and close downstairs. Mark's heavy, agitated footsteps echoed through the house. He was looking for me. I closed my laptop and waited. His footsteps came up the stairs, paused outside our bedroom door, then continued down the hall toward the guest room. I heard the sound of drawers opening and something heavy being moved. What was he up to? I got up and walked to the hallway. The door to the guest room was open and Mark was pulling my suitcases down from the top shelf of the closet, the matching set his parents had given us for our wedding. I'm just helping you get a head start, he said, not even looking at me. I know you had questions about the house, but that doesn't change the fact that you need to be out by Saturday. Sophia's movers are scheduled for 2 o'clock. The sheer audacity of it, helping me pack to leave my own home. I leaned against the doorframe, watching him stack the suitcases in the hall. That's very thoughtful of you, Mark, but I am curious about something. He finally turned to look at me, his expression guarded. What? These strategic consulting fees you've been paying to SC Strategies. $20,000 over the last 4 months. Could you explain what services you received for that particular investment? His face went carefully neutral, the same expression he used with difficult clients when he was trying to buy time to come up with an answer. That's for business development, portfolio expansion strategies. It's complicated. I'm a mergers and acquisitions attorney, Mark. I live for complicated. What I can't figure out is why a strategic consulting firm has no website, no corporate registration, no tax ID, and 0 professional footprint anywhere online. Sophia operates under a different paradigm, he said, his voice starting to take on a defensive tone. Not everyone needs a traditional corporate structure to deliver value. Sophia. I let her name hang in the air between us. So SC Strategies is Sophia Croft. Your performance strategist is also your business consultant. She's more than a strategist. Mark's voice rose a notch. She's a wellness consultant, a life architect, a con artist. The words hit the air like a physical blow. Mark's face flushed a deep red and his hands balled into fists at his sides. You're just jealous, he spat, his voice trembling with anger. You can't stand that I've finally found someone who actually supports my ambitions, who understands my potential, who's also taking money from Jessica Sterling, Olivia Rossi, Catherine Reed, and Michael Park, using the exact same playbook she's been using on you. Mark froze completely. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. What are you talking about? I checked my watch. 4:46 p.m. perfect timing. I'm talking about the fact that your girlfriend is operating a carefully scheduled circuit across 3 counties. Monday mornings with Jessica, who thinks she's helping Sophia escape a toxic ex. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons with Olivia, who believes she's bankrolling Sophia's expansion into corporate wellness. Wednesday evenings with Catherine, who's convinced she's funding Sophia's advanced certifications. Friday lunches with Michael, who thinks he's the seed investor in her revolutionary new app. And weekends with you, who believes you're her one true financial savior. The color had completely drained from Mark's face. He looked like someone had just informed him that the law of gravity was a hoax, and he'd been floating his whole life without realizing it. "That's not true," he whispered. "You're making it all up to what, Mark? To save a marriage that you just publicly detonated on our front lawn?" I pulled out my phone, opened Sophia's Instagram, and turned the screen so he could see her perfectly curated feed. Look at the location tags. Look at the timestamps. Cross-reference them with your own calendar, and you'll see the pattern. His hand trembled as he took my phone and started scrolling through her posts. I watched his face shift as he processed what he was seeing. The Monday morning yoga posts from Montclair, the Tuesday afternoon boutique visits in Millburn, the Wednesday evening wellness dinners in Summit, the Friday restaurant photos from Alpine. "She told me those were other client sessions," he said weakly. "Training appointments with other people." "She told you the truth," I replied. She just conveniently left out what kind of training she was providing. I took my phone back and opened my email app, which is why I think it's about time we all had a little chat about Sophia's very specialized services. Mark looked at me as if he were seeing a complete stranger. "What did you do?" "What any good lawyer does when they uncover fraud." I documented everything, built an airtight case, and I contacted the other victims. I showed him the email draft, letting him read the subject line and the names of the recipients. In approximately 45 seconds, I'm going to hit send on this email, and it's going to go to 4 people who are going to be very, very interested in comparing notes about their experiences with Sophia Croft. "Emily, wait. I looked at him with a mixture of pity and contempt. "You just threw divorce papers in my face on our front porch and told me I had 48 hours to leave the house that my girlfriend supposedly owns. You humiliated me in front of our entire neighborhood. You expected me to dissolve into a puddle of tears and beg you to reconsider. But here's the thing you forgot, Mark. I'm not some suburban housewife whose entire identity is tied up in her marriage. I'm a mergers and acquisitions attorney who specializes in finding the hidden traps in what look like perfectly straightforward agreements. And your girlfriend? She is the most poorly constructed scam I have ever had the displeasure of analyzing." I hit send at exactly 4:47 p.m. The email vanished from my outbox, launched into the digital ether, on its way to 4 people whose lives were about to change in ways they couldn't possibly imagine. Mark stared at my phone as if it were a weapon I had just discharged. "What have you done?" "I've provided 4 people with the information they need to make informed decisions about their relationships with Sophia. What they choose to do with that information is entirely up to them." I walked past him and into the bedroom. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some phone calls to prepare for. I expect Jessica Sterling will be the first to reach out. She's an attorney. She'll grasp the legal ramifications instantly. Olivia will probably be second, after she's had a chance to go over the financial documents. Catherine and Michael might take a little longer to process the emotional fallout." "Emily," Mark's voice cracked, "if what you're saying is true—" "It is. Then she's been—" He couldn't even finish the sentence. I paused in the bedroom doorway and looked back at him, standing in the middle of the hallway surrounded by my suitcases. His face was the color of old parchment, his expensive suit suddenly looking like a cheap costume he'd borrowed for a part he didn't understand. "You've been conned, Mark, systematically, expertly, and completely. And in about 15 minutes, when your phone starts blowing up with calls from 4 extremely angry people who have just discovered they were all conned by the same woman, you're going to understand just how thoroughly your perfect little plan has disintegrated. I closed the bedroom door, sat down at my desk, and opened my laptop. My phone was already starting to buzz with incoming notifications. The first call came at 5:03 p.m. Jessica Sterling, right on schedule. I let it ring twice before I answered. "Ms. Sterling, thank you for calling me back so quickly." Her voice was controlled, but I could hear the cold fury simmering just beneath the surface. "Mrs. Vance, I've received your email. These are extremely serious allegations you're making. I'm a MA attorney, Ms. Sterling. I don't make allegations. I present evidence." Through the bedroom door, I could hear Mark's phone start to ring, then ring again and again. The next 48 hours were going to be very, very interesting. Jessica Sterling spoke with the clipped precision of someone who had spent her entire career in a courtroom. "Mrs. Vance, I'm a divorce attorney. I've seen every form of manipulation in the book. What makes you so certain this isn't just a series of coincidences or a simple misunderstanding?" I opened the folder on my laptop labeled SC Strategies Research. It contained 8 weeks of investigation, telling a story that Mark couldn't have even fathomed. "Ms. Sterling, I'm going to share my screen with you. What you are about to see is the documentation I've been compiling since early October." Through the closed door, I could hear Mark's phone ringing incessantly now. His voice was a confused, defensive murmur as he tried to field multiple calls at once. I pulled up the first file, a screenshot of Sophia's website testimonials page. 5 glowing reviews from deeply satisfied clients: Jessica Sterling, divorce attorney; Olivia Rossi, boutique owner; Dr. Catherine Reed, pharmaceutical executive; Michael Park, hedge fund manager; and Mark Vance, investment banker. Jessica's silence on the other end of the line was heavy. Then she spoke. "I wrote that testimonial for her 6 months ago. She asked me to share my transformation story. I thought I was helping her build her credibility." "You were helping her build her client list," I said. "Look at the pattern. All 5 of you are successful married professionals." My second call came through while I was still on the line with Jessica. It was Olivia Rossi. I put Jessica on hold and answered. "Is this some kind of sick joke?" Olivia's voice was shaking with a barely contained rage. "Because if you're trying to blackmail me or..." "Ms. Rossi, I'm not trying to blackmail anyone. I'm trying to show you that you are not alone in this. Can you tell me how much money you have paid to SC Strategies over the past 7 months?" There was a sharp intake of breath. "That's private business information." Approximately $8,000, with payments described as business development consulting, so correct? I pulled up Olivia's financial records, which I had obtained through public filings for her business registry. Except SC Strategies isn't registered as a legitimate business. It's a shell name that Sophia uses to collect payments in a way that looks professional on a credit card statement. "How do you know about my payments?" Olivia's voice had shifted from furious to cautious. "Because I'm married to a man who has been paying the exact same non-existent company, and so have 3 other people. We are all funding different aspects of the same fraudulent lifestyle." I spent the next 40 minutes walking both Olivia and Jessica through the mountain of evidence I had gathered. The location tracking data that showed Sophia's rigid rotation schedule. Monday mornings in Montclair with Jessica, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons in Millburn with Olivia, Wednesday evenings in Summit with Catherine, Friday lunches in Alpine with Michael, and weekends in Maplewood Heights with Mark. She posts on Instagram from every location, I explained, pulling up a series of screenshots. Monday morning yoga poses geotagged near Montclair, with captions about setting intentions for the week. The timestamps align perfectly with your credit card charges, Ms. Sterling. I pulled those from public court records related to your own divorce cases. Tuesday and Thursday posts from Millburn, showing her outside of high-end boutiques, talking about supporting local businesses. Your local businesses, Olivia. Your business credit card statements show regular payments to SC Strategies on those exact dates. Olivia's voice was tight with dawning horror. She told me those were other client meetings. She said she had a full schedule because she was building her business. She wasn't lying, I said. She just failed to specify what kind of business she was actually running. My phone buzzed with an incoming call from Dr. Catherine Reed. I added her to the conference line. Catherine's voice was clinical and controlled, the tone of someone accustomed to managing pharmaceutical crises. Mrs. Vance, I have reviewed the documents you sent. These are serious claims that demand serious proof. What is your source for this financial information? Public records, credit card statements obtained through legal discovery channels, business registry filings, and location data from social media posts cross-referenced with known addresses. I replied, pulling up the master spreadsheet my mother had helped me build. I'm a corporate attorney, Dr. Reed. I know how to construct a case that will withstand scrutiny. You mentioned expenses for wellness retreats that I supposedly funded. How did you get that information? Through your pharmaceutical company's public financial disclosures. Professional development reimbursements are itemized in their quarterly reports. The dates of those reimbursements align perfectly with Sophia's Instagram posts from Miami and Scottsdale. Trips she claimed were for advanced certification programs, but were, in fact, luxury vacations. I heard Catherine's sharp intake of breath. I approved those reimbursements. She showed me brochures for the certification programs. She said she needed advanced training in pharmaceutical-grade nutrition planning. Did you ever verify that those programs actually existed? Silence. That's what I thought, I said softly. She's very good at presenting just enough documentation to make the lie feel plausible. Michael Park joined the call at 5:47 p.m., manager's voice carrying the kind of controlled tension that comes from managing billions of dollars in volatile markets. Someone had better explain why I'm on a conference call with 4 strangers discussing my private coaching sessions. Mr. Park, we aren't strangers, Jessica said, her attorney's voice cutting through the tension. We are all marks in the same con, and Mrs. Vance has the documentation to prove it. I walked Michael through the same body of evidence, watching the pieces fall into place for him just as they had for the others. The seed investment he'd made in Sophia's new wellness app, money that had gone directly into a high-yield savings account I'd traced through public financial records. The Friday lunch meetings he believed were private mentorship sessions were, in fact, just another scheduled appointment in her rotation. She told me I was the only person who truly understood her vision, Michael said quietly. She said everyone else just saw a coach, but I saw an entrepreneur. She told Mark he was the only person who understood her spiritual journey, I replied. She told Jessica she had never felt safer with anyone. She told Olivia they were destined to build a business empire together. She told Catherine their connection was transforming her entire understanding of wellness. She customized the con for each of her targets. By 6:15 p.m., I had all 4 of them on the line, each processing the shared reality that they had been systematically manipulated by the same woman. How did you figure all of this out? Jessica asked. Most people wouldn't have the resources or the expertise to conduct an investigation of this scale. My mother is a forensic auditor, I explained. She taught me how to follow money trails and look for patterns. When I found the payments to SC Strategies and couldn't find any legitimate business registration, I knew something was wrong. The testimonials on Sophia's own website gave me the other names. The rest was just methodical research. Research, Olivia repeated. You make it sound so simple. It wasn't simple. It took 8 weeks of tracking location data, analyzing social media posts, accessing public records, and cross-referencing financial information. But once you see the pattern, it's impossible to unsee it. My mother had helped with the deepest parts of the dig, tracking down Sophia's real address in a modest town, not the luxury Hoboken apartment Jessica had been paying the rent on. That apartment was just a prop, a private studio funded by one Mark while she lived somewhere else entirely. The white Porsche Macan was registered in Sophia's name, but insured through Olivia's business account. The wellness retreats were real trips, just not for the professional certifications she had claimed. She has built an entire lifestyle on our money, Catherine said, her clinical tone finally cracking, and we have been her willing accomplices. The most damning evidence of all was sitting in a separate encrypted folder on my desktop, screenshots of text conversations Sophia had saved to a backup cloud account. I'd found them through a reverse lookup service after discovering she'd used the same email address across multiple accounts with slight variations in her name. "There's something else you all need to see," I said carefully. "Sophia kept records of your conversations with her, screenshots, probably as a form of insurance or leverage." "What kind of conversations?" Michael asked, his voice sharp. I pulled up the files. Conversations where Mark discusses divorcing me and giving her everything. Messages where you talk about leaving your wife once your kids are in college, Mr. Park. Texts from Dr. Reed about creating a pharmaceutical crisis at work to justify spending more time with Sophia. Plans from Miss Rossi about building a wellness empire together, and, critically, detailed discussions with Miss Sterling about how to structure divorce proceedings to maximize asset extraction. The silence on the line was absolute. "She wasn't just conning us," Jessica said finally. "She was collecting ammunition." "Exactly. She has enough material to destroy 5 marriages, 5 careers, and 5 reputations. She's been building leverage this entire time." Through the bedroom door, I heard Mark's heavy, defeated footsteps on the stairs. His phone had finally stopped ringing. "So, what do we do now?" Olivia asked. I looked at the clock. 6:33 p.m., 31 hours and 27 minutes until Sophia's moving truck was scheduled to arrive at my house. Now, I said, we coordinate. "Coordinate how?" Olivia asked, her voice still trembling with the shock of realizing she had been played for 7 straight months. I pulled up a blank document on my screen, my fingers already flying across the keyboard. "We need to approach this with surgical precision. Each of us has a different area of expertise, different resources, a different angle of attack. If we work together, we can construct a case that Sophia cannot escape." Jessica's legal mind was already shifting into high gear. "What are you proposing exactly?" "A coordinated, multi-front assault, legal action, financial investigation, regulatory complaints, and social media documentation. Everything needs to happen simultaneously, so she can't plug one leak while another one is still gushing." Through my bedroom door, I could hear Mark's footsteps descending the stairs. He was probably going to call Sophia and try to warn her that something was wrong. Let him. By the time she understood the full scope of what was happening, it would be far too late to stop it. "I'm listening," Michael said. "What do you need from each of us?" I opened a new group chat on my phone, using a secure messaging app my firm used for sensitive client communications. First, we need a secure channel of communication. I'm creating a group chat right now. Everyone check your phones. 4 distinct notification pings sounded through the conference line as I added them one by one. "Jessica, you're a divorce attorney. You understand fraud, you know how to file the right complaints with the right authorities, and you can build the framework for the civil case. Can you handle the legal architecture?" "Absolutely. I'm already mentally drafting the charges. We're looking at fraud across multiple counties, identity theft through the use of false business entities, and tax evasion. If she's been collecting this much unreported income, the IRS is going to be very, very interested." "Good. Olivia, you run multiple businesses. You understand social media, branding, and online presence. Can you document everything on Sophia's platforms before she gets a chance to delete any of it?" Olivia's voice came through, sharper now, more focused. "I can do better than that. I have software that can archive entire websites in real time. Every testimonial, every blog post, every single claim she's ever made. I can preserve all of it with timestamps and metadata. She won't be able to claim a single thing was doctored." "Perfect. Catherine, you work in the pharmaceutical industry. You mentioned she sold you supplements that she claimed were pharmaceutical grade. Can you coordinate with the regulatory bodies about the unlicensed sale of medical products? Catherine's clinical tone was back. The FDA has a specific division for this. If she's been marketing products with medical claims without the proper licensing, that's a federal offense. I can make the right calls first thing tomorrow morning. Michael, you manage investment portfolios. You understand money trails, banking systems, and complex financial structures. Can you follow her accounts and trace exactly where all of this money has been going? Michael's response was immediate. I have contacts at 3 major banks and 2 financial investigation firms. If she's been running this money through shell accounts, we'll find them. Money always leaves a trail. Then we have our team, I said, pulling up a fresh spreadsheet and creating columns for each person's responsibilities. We move fast, we stay coordinated, and we don't give her an inch of room to cover her tracks. Jessica's voice cut through with the precision of someone who had managed hundreds of legal cases. We need to establish clear rules of engagement, complete transparency. Anything we find gets shared with the group immediately. No solo moves that could compromise someone else's angle, and we document everything with the assumption that it could end up as evidence in a courtroom. Agreed, I said, typing notes into the new group chat. Olivia, start with her Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, anything with a digital footprint. Archive everything tonight, already on it. I'm screen recording her entire Instagram feed as we speak. Catherine, draft an outline of what you know about her supplement sales, product names, what she claimed they did, and who she sold them to. Find out who we need to contact, what forms need to be filed, and the timeline for an official complaint. On it. Though I should warn everyone, once we file official complaints, this becomes a matter of public record. Everyone's involvement will be documented. I could feel the weight of that statement hang over the call. These were successful professionals with reputations to protect, with careers that could be damaged by being associated with a fraud scandal. I understand that's a risk, I said carefully, but consider the alternative. If we don't stop her, she continues this operation. She finds new targets. More people lose their money and more families are destroyed. We have the power to put an end to this, but only if we're willing to accept some short-term embarrassment for the sake of long-term justice. Michael was the first to speak. I'm in. My marriage is already on the rocks. My wife is going to find out about this eventually. It's better she hears it from me while we're taking action than for her to discover it later, when even more damage has been done. Olivia followed. My business can handle this. I would rather be known as the woman who helped catch a con artist than the one who got played and did nothing about it. Catherine's voice was steady. The pharmaceutical industry has incredibly strict ethics standards. Coming forward about this demonstrates integrity, not weakness. I'm prepared to face the consequences. Jessica's response carried the weight of someone who had seen countless cases like this. As an attorney, I should have known better. But that's exactly why I have to be a part of stopping this. If I could be fooled, anyone can. This isn't about protecting my ego. It's about preventing future victims. My bedroom door creaked open. Mark was standing in the doorway, his face pale, his expensive suit looking rumpled and defeated. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 2 hours. Emily, we need to talk, he said quietly. I held up a single finger, signaling for him to wait. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to pause for a moment. Please continue working on your respective tasks. I'll check the group chat in 30 minutes with updates. Understood, Jessica said. We'll coordinate through the chat. I ended the conference call and turned to face Mark. He walked into the room and sank onto the edge of our bed, his hands clasped tightly between his knees. I called Sophia, he said. His voice was hollow, devoid of its usual confidence. She's not answering. I've left her 6 voicemails. I've sent her a dozen texts. Nothing. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a desperate confusion. I thought she loved me. I thought we were building a future together. I felt a strange twist in my chest. It wasn't sympathy, not exactly. but it was a recognition of the specific gut-wrenching pain that comes from discovering you've been systematically deceived. I had felt it myself when I first confirmed Mark's affair. The only difference was that I had channeled that pain into a methodical investigation instead of a complete collapse. She didn't love you, Mark. She was working you. The same way she worked Jessica, Olivia, Catherine, and Michael. You were a target, selected for a very specific set of characteristics: married, financially comfortable, professionally successful, and emotionally vulnerable. How was I emotionally vulnerable? He asked, his voice rising defensively. You're 43 years old, working in an industry where youth and vitality are seen as signals of success. Your clients are getting younger while you're getting older. You've been worried about your relevance, about staying competitive, about proving you still have what it takes. Sophia saw that vulnerability and exploited it masterfully. Mark's phone buzzed. He grabbed it desperately, but his face fell as he looked at the screen. It's just my managing partner. He wants to schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning to discuss client concerns. Your clients are already hearing about this. Word travels fast in our world. One of Jessica's clients is also one of my major clients. He called my managing partner asking if it was true that I was involved in some kind of fraud scheme. My own phone was buzzing with notifications from our new group chat. Olivia had already archived Sophia's entire social media presence and uploaded it to a secure cloud folder. Catherine had drafted a preliminary complaint to the FDA regarding the unlicensed sale of pharmaceutical products. Michael had already traced 3 different bank accounts linked to variations of Sophia's name, and Jessica had outlined the complaints for the State Attorney General's office and the Consumer Fraud Division. We had been coordinating for less than an hour, and we already had enough documentation to completely bury Sophia's operation. What happens now? Mark asked quietly. I looked at him, sitting on our bed, his perfect life crumbling around him, his girlfriend exposed as a con artist, his career hanging by a thread. A part of me felt a grim sense of vindication. A part of me felt a pang of sadness. But mostly, I just felt tired. Now we finish what we started. Jessica files the complaints tomorrow morning. Catherine contacts the FDA. Olivia preserves all the digital evidence. Michael traces every last dollar. And I coordinate everything to make sure that Sophia faces the consequences for what she's done. And me? His voice cracked. What happens to me? That depends entirely on you, Mark. You can choose to cooperate with our investigation, provide whatever information you have, and possibly mitigate some of the damage to your reputation, or you can continue to try to protect Sophia and go down with her ship. The choice is yours. He stared at me for a long, silent moment. You really planned all of this. I documented a crime. I contacted the other victims. I coordinated a response. That's not planning revenge, Mark. That's pursuing justice. He walked to the door, paused, and looked back at me. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Save your apologies for when you're explaining all of this to your clients. He left, closing the door softly behind him. I returned to my laptop and opened the group chat. Everyone still here? I typed. 4 immediate responses popped up. Yes. Here. Ready. Confirmed. Then let's finish building this case. We have 29 hours until Sophia's moving truck arrives at my house. I want to make sure that when she gets here, she's greeted by something very different from what she expected. The group chat was a flurry of activity over the next 3 hours. At 7:15 p.m., Olivia sent a screenshot with a message that made my chest tighten. Just confirmed 2 additional victims in Bergen County. Found them through mutual connections on Sophia's Facebook. Same pattern, married professionals, significant assets, all paying for private wellness coaching. Reaching out to them now. 7 victims, not 5, 7. Catherine's message came at 7:22 p.m. Spoke with a contact at the FDA. Her supplement operation is completely unlicensed. She's been selling products with explicit pharmaceutical claims. weight loss, hormone regulation, immune system enhancement, without any certification. That's federal jurisdiction. They're opening a file. Michael at 7:30 p.m. Trace the funds through 3 shell companies registered in Delaware. She's been moving the money systematically to avoid detection. This isn't amateur hour. Someone taught her how to structure this. Possibly a previous victim who worked in finance. I'm digging deeper. Jessica at 7:35 p.m. Filing preliminary complaints with the state attorney general tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. sharp. I've also contacted the IRS fraud division. With 7 victims and an estimated unreported income exceeding $200,000 over the last 3 years, this is serious tax evasion. $200,000. I stared at the number, trying to wrap my head around the scale of what Sophia had built. This wasn't just a personal trainer having affairs with her clients. This was an organized criminal enterprise operating across multiple counties and possibly multiple states. I stood up and walked to the bedroom window, looking down at our quiet street. The Miller's house was dark, except for the blue flicker of a television in their living room. Mrs. Gable's porch light cast long, dramatic shadows across her front yard. Everything looked so normal, so peaceful, so unchanged. But inside this house, inside this very room, I was coordinating the complete dismantling of someone's entire life. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "How's it going?" I typed back a quick reply. 7 victims now. Federal charges are likely. Everything is converging much faster than I expected. Her response was immediate. "You're doing the right thing. Stay focused." I heard the front door open downstairs. It was Mark coming back inside after another failed attempt to reach Sophia by phone. His footsteps echoed through the house, the kitchen, the living room, his home office. He was searching for something, or perhaps just avoiding the inevitable task of coming back upstairs to face me. At 7:45 p.m., M.O. Olivia sent another update. One of the new victims, a pharmaceutical rep from Ridgefield named Helen, says Sophia told her she was planning to settle down with a wealthy investment banker who was in the process of divorcing his wife. Helen gave her $20,000 as an investment in their future business together. That wealthy investment banker was Mark. My hands clenched around my phone. $20,000 from a woman who thought she was investing in a future partnership with my husband. I forwarded the message to Mark's phone with a simple note. "You should see this." 3 floors below, I heard his phone chime. Then a profound silence. Then a sound that might have been a groan or a sob. I couldn't tell which. Jessica sent a voice message at 7:48 p.m. "Emily, I need to warn you about something. Once we file these complaints tomorrow, things are going to move very fast. Sophia will likely be contacted by the authorities within 48 hours. She is going to know who initiated this investigation. You need to be prepared for her response. People like this do not go down quietly." I played the message twice, letting Jessica's warning sink in. She was right. Sophia had spent years building this operation, collecting leverage, and maintaining absolute control. When she realized it was all collapsing, she would fight back with everything she had. At 7:50 p.m., headlights swept across my bedroom wall. I walked to the window and looked down to see Sophia's white Porsche Macan pulling into our driveway with a deliberate, confident air. She parked right behind Mark's Mercedes, the car's gleaming paint catching the light from the street lamps. My breath caught in my throat. She was here, 24 hours early. The driver's side door opened and Sophia stepped out, clad in a designer athleisure outfit that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Black leggings with mesh panels, a matching sports bra under a cropped jacket, and pristine white sneakers. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a high ponytail that swung as she moved. She looked like she had just stepped off the pages of a luxury fitness magazine, all lean muscle and confident grace. She pulled an expensive leather duffel bag from the passenger seat, then walked to the back of the Porsche and opened the hatch. Inside were boxes, actual moving boxes, labeled with a thick black marker. kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. She had already packed. She had already labeled everything. She was moving in a full day early, probably to establish possession before I had a chance to react. I grabbed my phone and sent a quick text to the group. Our guest of honor has just arrived. 24 hours early. She's unloading moving boxes. Are you all ready for the reveal? 4 responses came back within seconds. Jessica, ready. I'm recording this on my phone from my office. Timestamp documentation. Olivia, I'm screen recording everything. I have my camera set up. This is going to be incredible. Catherine, document everything, every word, every reaction. Michael, about time. Let's end this. From downstairs, Sophia's voice rang out with a practiced cheerfulness. Mark, honey, I'm here. I know I'm early, but I just couldn't wait another day. Should I start bringing my things in, or do you want to help me carry the boxes? I heard Mark's footsteps moving quickly toward the front door. His voice was strained, uncertain. Sophia, wait, we need to talk first. Talk about what? Her voice had that breathy, vulnerable quality she used when she wanted to sound appealing. About our future? About finally being together? Mark, I've been so excited. I've already started planning how to redecorate. I think we should paint the living room a softer color, maybe add some plants, create a real wellness space. Sophia, something's happened. Something with... I appeared at the top of the stairs, my phone in my hand, my expression carefully neutral. Something with me, I said, my voice carrying down into the foyer with perfect clarity. Something to do with the email I sent to Jessica Sterling, Olivia Rossi, Catherine Reed, and Michael Park about 3 hours ago. Sophia looked up at me, her expression flickering between confusion and calculation. She set down her duffel bag slowly, her entire body language shifting from eager to wary. Well, I continued, descending the stairs with deliberate slowness. Sophia Croft. Or should I use one of your other professional aliases? Though I suppose at this point we should probably stick to your legal name, since that's what will be on all the official documents. The effect was immediate and deeply satisfying. Sophia's confident smile froze on her face. Her expression went through a rapid series of micro-expressions: surprise, concern, calculation, and finally, fear. Mark turned to me with a look that clearly said he was rapidly rethinking every single decision he had made in the last 6 months. Emily, I thought you'd be packing, Mark managed to say, though his voice had lost all of its earlier conviction. I reached the bottom of the stairs, pulled out my phone, opened my email app, and held it up so they could both see the screen clearly. Oh, I've been very busy tonight, just not with packing. In fact, I've been on a fascinating conference call, coordinating with some people who are extremely interested in meeting you, Sophia. Sophia's hand went to her throat, an unconscious gesture of someone feeling suddenly exposed. I don't know what you're talking about, really. The name Jessica Sterling doesn't ring a bell? The divorce attorney who's been paying the rent on your Hoboken apartment for the last 9 months? I scrolled through my phone. Or Olivia Rossi, who's been covering the lease on that beautiful Porsche you just parked in my driveway. Or Dr. Catherine Reed, who funded your luxury wellness retreats to Miami and Scottsdale. Or Michael Park, who invested $25,000 in your startup business that doesn't actually exist. Mark made a sound like he'd just been punched in the gut. Sophia's face had gone completely pale, her eyes darting between me and the front door as if she were mentally calculating her escape routes. You're confused, Sophia stammered. But her practiced composure was cracking like thin ice under pressure. I took another step toward her, my voice dropping to a quiet, dangerous tone. I'm not confused. I'm a mergers and acquisitions attorney who has spent the last 8 weeks documenting your entire operation. I know about the rotation schedule: Mondays with Jessica, Tuesdays and Thursdays with Olivia, Wednesdays with Catherine, Fridays with Michael, and weekends with Mark. I know about the fake business entity you use to collect your payments. I know about the text messages you saved as leverage. And I know about Helen Torres and the $20,000 she gave you as an investment in her future with my husband." Sophia's hand dropped from Mark's shoulder as if she'd been burned. She took a step back, her designer sneakers squeaking on our hardwood floor. "Mark, she's lying," Sophia said, but her voice had lost all of its breathy appeal. "She's just trying to destroy us because she's jealous, because she knows we have something real." My phone rang, the sound cutting through the thick tension like a knife. I answered it on speaker. If I was going to destroy someone's carefully constructed empire, I might as well do it with a bit of theatrical flair. "Emily, it's Jessica Sterling. I'm here with the others." I held the phone up between us so that both Mark and Sophia could hear every word clearly. "Hello, Jessica. Perfect timing. Sophia just arrived at my house. 24 hours early. She's already unloading her moving boxes." Jessica's voice came through crisp and professional. "How interesting." "Sophia, if you can hear me, I just wanted you to know that I have finished filing the preliminary complaints with the State Attorney General's office, the Consumer Fraud Division, and the IRS. I thought you might want a heads up about what's coming." Sophia's face progressed from pale to gray, then to a sickly shade of green. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Olivia's voice joined the call. "This is Olivia Rossi. I have documented your entire social media presence. Every testimonial, every claim, every fabricated story. It's all been preserved with timestamps and metadata. You can delete your accounts now, but it won't matter. We have everything." Catherine's clinical tone cut through next. "Dr. Catherine Reed, I have contacted the FDA about your unlicensed supplement operation. They are very interested in products that claim to regulate hormones and enhance the immune system without proper certification. That's a federal matter." Michael's voice was the last, cold and precise. "Michael Park, I have traced your money through 3 separate shell companies registered in Delaware. The IRS is going to be fascinated by the $200,000 in unreported income you've accrued over the last 3 years. The silence that followed was so absolute, I could hear the antique clock in the hallway ticking away the seconds." Sophia grabbed her duffel bag with trembling hands, backing slowly toward the door. I smiled, watching her entire world collapse in real time. "Leaving so soon?" I asked. "But you only just got here." Sophia's hand tightened on her duffel bag. For a brief moment, I thought she might actually make a run for it, just bolt out the door and vanish into the night. But instead, she straightened her shoulders and made one last, desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "This is all just a misunderstanding," she said, her voice losing that breathy quality and becoming harder, more calculating. "Emily, I don't know what Mark told you about our relationship, but you are clearly confused about—" Confused? I stepped closer, my phone still in my hand, with the property records now clearly visible on the screen. "Let me clear up any confusion for you. Jessica has paid you $9,000 over the last 9 months for what you told her was the rent on your private training studio. That studio is, in fact, your Hoboken apartment, the one you live in. She thought she was helping you maintain a professional space. She was actually just paying your rent." Sophia's jaw clenched. "That's not—" "Olivia has been covering a $450 monthly lease payment on the Porsche you drove here tonight for 7 months. That's $3,150. You told her it was a joint business investment, that you would be using the vehicle to transport equipment and travel to client locations for your expanding wellness empire." I could see the frantic calculations happening behind Sophia's eyes. She was trying to figure out how much I actually knew, whether there was still a way she could talk her way out of this. "Catherine funded 6 trips for you over the last 8 months. To Miami, Scottsdale, Sedona, Tulum, Santa Fe, and Costa Rica. Total cost, approximately $18,000. You told her they were for advanced certification programs in pharmaceutical nutrition. They were luxury vacations." Mark had gone completely silent, his face the color of old newspaper. He stood frozen in the middle of our foyer, like a man who had just watched his entire understanding of reality collapse in on itself. Michael invested $25,000 in your startup wellness business. You showed him a business plan, financial projections, and a market analysis. None of it was real. The money went directly into a savings account. And Mark, I turned to look at my husband, paid $20,000 to SC Strategies for business advisory services. Except SC Strategies doesn't exist as a registered business entity. That money funded your day-to-day expenses, groceries, utilities, shopping, entertainment. He thought he was helping you build an empire. He was just paying your bills. Sophia's face had gone from pale to flushed, with anger finally replacing her panic. You have no right to what? To investigate fraud? To contact other victims? To document a criminal enterprise? I held up my phone. I have every right. I'm a victim too, Sophia. You've been sleeping with my husband, taking his money and planning to move into my house. That gives me every right imaginable. Through the phone speaker, I could hear Jessica typing. Emily, I'm adding something to the group chat. Evidence that just came through from one of the new victims, Helen Torres. My phone buzzed. I opened the group chat and saw a series of screenshots. They were text messages between Sophia and Helen, dated over the past 4 months. Mark, you should see this, I said, turning my phone toward him. He took it with shaking hands and started scrolling through the messages. I watched his face change as he read Sophia's words to another woman. I finally found someone who understands me, a successful investment banker who's ending his marriage. We're going to build something beautiful together, a wellness empire that combines his business expertise with my coaching. He's giving me everything, his house, his support, his future. I just need a little help getting established first. Mark's voice was barely a whisper. You told her I was giving you my house. Our house. Sophia corrected automatically, then seemed to realize her mistake. I mean, the house you said we would live in together. The house I never owned, Mark said, his voice hollow. The house that belongs to Emily's family trust. You built your entire plan around an asset that was never mine to give. Michael's voice came through the phone speaker, cold and analytical. That's the fatal flaw in her operation. She's been promising each of us a different future. Retirement together, a business partnership, a spiritual connection, a financial empire. But she never verified the actual assets. She just made assumptions based on lifestyle and appearance. It's a classic con artist mistake. Greed overcomes due diligence. Sophia's mask finally cracked. The carefully constructed wellness influencer persona shattered, and what emerged was something harder, more desperate. You have no idea what it's like, she said, her voice shaking with rage. To watch people like you live in houses like this, drive expensive cars, take vacations, and spend money like it's nothing. I worked hard for everything. I built relationships. I provided value. You ran a con, Jessica's voice cut through from the phone. You systematically targeted married professionals, identified their vulnerabilities, customized your emotional manipulation for each person, and extracted money from them under false pretenses. That's not building relationships. That's fraud. Olivia's voice joined in. I believed you when you said you were struggling. I wanted to help you. I gave you access to my business accounts because I thought we were partners. You betrayed that trust. Catherine's clinical tone was devastating in its precision. The supplements you sold me contained undisclosed ingredients. I had them tested after I read Emily's email. They're not just unlicensed, they're potentially dangerous. People could have been seriously harmed. Sophia's eyes darted between the phone, the door, Mark, and me. She was cornered, and she knew it. This is entrapment, she said, grasping at straws. You coordinated this attack. You conspired against me. Victims coordinating a response isn't entrapment, Jessica said coolly. It's justice. And tomorrow morning, when I walk into the state attorney general's office, they're going to agree. Mark finally found his voice. How many? He asked Sophia. How many people have you done this to? Sophia's silence was answer enough. We've identified 7 confirmed victims in the last 3 years, Michael said through the speaker. But based on the financial patterns I'm seeing, I suspect there are more. Probably dating back 5 or 6 years, possibly in other states before she set up her operation in New Jersey. Mark set my phone down on the hall table and looked at Sophia as if he were seeing her for the very first time. I told you about my clients. I told you about my career. I talked about getting divorced, about building a future with you. And you were working me the entire time. Mark, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, he said, his voice flat and empty of all emotion. I was a target. That's all I ever was. Sophia made one last desperate attempt to control the narrative. Fine. You want the truth? Yes. I took money from people who could afford to give it. Yes, I told different stories to different people, but I provided value. I helped you get in shape, Mark. I gave Jessica emotional support during her divorce cases. I helped Olivia think through her business strategy. I provided Catherine with wellness guidance. Michael got financial advice. Everyone got something. We got lies, I said quietly. Carefully constructed lies designed to extract the maximum possible value. You studied each of us, figured out what we needed emotionally, and you sold us a fantasy while you took our money. Jessica's voice came through with a note of finality. Sophia, I have been a divorce attorney for 15 years. I have seen every manipulation tactic, every justification, and every rationalization. What you just said, claiming you provided value while admitting you ran a con, that's going to look very, very bad in court. I would strongly recommend that you stop talking and contact a lawyer. The fight went out of Sophia all at once. Her shoulders slumped, her carefully maintained posture collapsing. She suddenly looked smaller, younger, less like the confident wellness influencer and more like someone who had just been caught doing something terrible. I need to leave, she said quietly. That's the first honest thing you've said all night, I replied. She picked up her duffel bag and walked toward the door. Mark didn't try to stop her. Neither did I. At the doorway, she paused and looked back. For what it's worth, I did care about you, Mark, at least a little. Mark's laugh was a bitter, broken sound. You cared about my bank account. Get out of my sight. Sophia opened the door and stepped out into the night. The Porsche, Olivia's Porsche, started with a smooth purr. The headlights swept across our front windows as she backed out of the driveway. We stood in silence, watching the taillights disappear down our tree-lined street. Through the phone speaker, Jessica was the first to speak. That went better than I expected. She didn't deny anything. That's going to make the legal proceedings much simpler. She knew she was caught, Michael said. There's no point in denying documented evidence. Olivia's voice carried a note of deep satisfaction. Did you see her face when you told her about the house ownership? That was beautiful. Justice usually is, Catherine said quietly. I picked up my phone from the hall table. Thank you, everyone, for believing me, for coordinating so quickly, and for being willing to come forward. This wouldn't have worked without all of you. We should be thanking you, Jessica said. You're the one who connected the dots. You brought us all together. You gave us the power to stop her. What happens now? Olivia asked. I looked at Mark, standing in our foyer, surrounded by the wreckage of his carefully planned future. Now, we finish what we started. Jessica files her complaints tomorrow. The rest of us provide our documentation, and we let the legal system do what it was designed to do. Agreed, Michael said. I'll have my financial documentation ready by morning. Same, Catherine confirmed. I'll continue to monitor her social media in case she tries to delete any evidence. Olivia added. We said our goodbyes and ended the call. I set my phone down and looked at Mark. 8 years, he said finally. 8 years of marriage. And it took you 8 weeks to destroy everything. I didn't destroy anything, Mark. You did that yourself the moment you chose her over me. Mark didn't move. He just stood in the foyer, staring at the empty space where Sophia had been standing moments before, as if he looked long enough, she might reappear and explain that this was all just some terrible misunderstanding. "Mark," I said quietly, "I meant what I said. You need to find somewhere else to sleep tonight." He turned to look at me, his face a kaleidoscope of emotions: anger, denial, desperation, and finally, something that resembled a grim acceptance. "Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You can go to a hotel, you can call a friend, you can sleep in your car for all I care, but you are not staying in this house tonight. Emily, please." "Please what? Please forgive you? Please pretend you didn't throw divorce papers at me on our front porch this afternoon? Please forget that you tried to evict me from my own house so your con artist girlfriend could move in?" My voice was rising, despite my efforts to remain calm. "You humiliated me in front of our entire neighborhood. You made me a public spectacle. You expected me to dissolve into a puddle of tears and beg for another chance. Well, here's your reality check, Mark. I'm not begging, I'm done." He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "Can I at least pack some clothes? You have 15 minutes. Take what you need for a few days. We'll figure out the rest of it through our lawyers." Mark trudged up the stairs slowly, each step heavy with defeat. I could hear him moving around in our bedroom, drawers opening, closet doors sliding, the zip of a suitcase. Through it all, my phone kept buzzing with updates from the group chat. Jessica at 8:47 p.m. Found. Just got confirmation from the State Attorney General's office. They're opening a formal investigation first thing Monday morning. This is moving even faster than I expected. Olivia at 8:52 p.m. Found Sophia's backup Instagram account under a slight name variation. She's been using it to recruit new targets. Screenshots have been captured and saved. This woman was planning to expand her operation. Catherine at 9:03 p.m. FDA investigators want to interview all of us about the supplements. They're treating this as a public health concern. Apparently, one of the ingredients she was using is banned in the U.S. Michael at 9:15 p.m. Trace the Delaware shell companies back to a business consultant in Atlantic City. Sophia didn't create this structure herself. Someone taught her. I'm digging into the consultant now. This might be bigger than just her operation. I poured myself another glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table, watching the investigation expand in real time through the screen of my phone. What had started as my private discovery of my husband's affair had morphed into something much larger, the coordinated takedown of a criminal enterprise that had been operating for years. My mother called at 9:23 p.m. I answered immediately. "How did it go?" she asked without any preamble. Sophia showed up 24 hours early with moving boxes. We confronted her with all 4 victims on speakerphone. She tried to deny it, then she tried to justify it, then she fell apart completely. She left about an hour ago. And Mark? He's packing a suitcase upstairs. I told him to leave tonight. There was a pause on the line. "How are you holding up?" I looked around my kitchen in my house, the one Mark had tried to give away to a woman who had been using him for his money. Honestly, I'm exhausted, but I'm also relieved. It's like I've been holding my breath for the last 8 weeks and I can finally exhale. That's the adrenaline wearing off. The emotional processing will come later. Be prepared for that. I know. I took a sip of wine. Mom, thank you for teaching me to look for patterns, to document everything, to stay calm when my emotions wanted to take over. None of this would have worked without those skills. And you did the hard part, Emily. I just gave you the tools. What you built with them. That was all you. Mark came downstairs carrying a large suitcase and a garment bag. He set them by the front door and stood there awkwardly, as if he were waiting for permission to leave his own home. "Mom, I have to go," I said. "Mark's leaving. Call me tomorrow. We'll talk through the next steps." I ended the call and looked at Mark. "Is that everything you need?" "For now." He hesitated. Emily, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but can we talk about the divorce? About how we handle this? We handle it through attorneys. Jessica Sterling gave me a referral to a colleague of hers who specializes in divorce cases involving financial misconduct. I'm calling her on Monday morning. Financial misconduct? You're going to claim you paid $20,000 to a fake business entity using marital funds to support your affair partner. That is the textbook definition of financial misconduct, Mark. Your attorney will explain the implications. His face crumpled. I never meant for any of this to happen, but it did happen. You chose Sophia over me. You chose to believe her lies over the reality of our marriage. You chose to humiliate me publicly instead of having an honest conversation. Those were your choices, Mark. Now you get to live with the consequences. He picked up his suitcase and his garment bag. Where do we go from here? You go to wherever you're staying tonight. I stay here, in my house. Our attorneys will communicate about the division of assets and the terms of the divorce, and we both try to salvage whatever pieces of our lives are still intact. Mark walked to the door, opened it, and paused. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I was an idiot. I let myself get played because I wanted to believe that someone saw something special in me. She did see something special in you, Mark. She saw a target with accessible funds and emotional vulnerabilities. That's what con artists do. They find people who want to be seen as special, and they sell them that fantasy. He nodded slowly, stepped through the doorway, and walked to his Mercedes. I watched him load his suitcase into the trunk. I watched him sit in the driver's seat for a long moment before starting the engine. I watched the taillights disappear down our street. Then I closed the door, locked it, and stood alone in my foyer. The house was quiet. No Mark on work calls in his office. No sounds from the television in the living room. No shower running upstairs. Just a profound silence, punctuated by the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the hallway clock. I walked through the rooms, turning on lights, reclaiming the space that had almost been stolen from me. The living room where Mark and I used to watch movies. The kitchen where we had shared breakfast together for 8 years, the dining room where we had hosted countless dinner parties, the home office where I had spent 8 weeks building the case that would ultimately end our marriage. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jessica. "How are you doing?" I typed back a reply. "Mark just left. The house is empty. I'm okay." Her response came quickly. "The first night is always the hardest. Call if you need to talk, any hour." Olivia sent a message to the group chat. "Just checking on everyone. Tonight was intense. Are we all okay?" Catherine. "Dealing with it. My husband wants to know everything. It's going to be a difficult conversation." Michael. "My wife kicked me out. I'm staying at my brother's place. Can't say I blame her." Jessica. "Sleeping in my guest room tonight. My husband needs some space to process. We'll figure it out." And me? I looked around my quiet, empty house and typed my own reply. "I'm okay. Better than okay." Saturday morning, Jessica contacted me to coordinate our statements for the prosecutor's office. On Sunday afternoon, my mother drove up from her house to sit with me in the kitchen and review everything that had happened. "You handled this perfectly," she said, looking over the documentation on my laptop. "Every piece of evidence is clean, properly sourced, and legally obtained. They won't be able to challenge any of this." "What about Mark?" I asked. "Will he face charges too?" My mom shook her head. "He's a victim, even if he's also a perpetrator in your marriage. The prosecutor will focus on Sophia." Monday morning arrived with a sense of finality. 9 a.m., Jessica filed the official divorce petition, citing irreconcilable differences and financial misconduct. By noon, Mark's attorney had responded, requesting mediation. By 3 p.m., we were sitting in a conference room at Jessica's law firm with both of our attorneys and a neutral mediator. Mark looked awful. His expensive suit seemed to hang off him, as if he'd lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes. His hands trembled slightly as he paged through the divorce petition. "This is excessive." his attorney said, pointing to the asset division proposal. Mrs. Vance is requesting 3/4 of all liquid assets, full ownership of the marital residence, and the marital residence was never marital property, Jessica interrupted smoothly. It is owned by the Vance Family Trust. Mr. Vance has no legal claim to it whatsoever. As for the liquid assets, we are prepared to demonstrate that Mr. Vance misused marital funds totaling $20,000 to support his affair partner's fraudulent operation. That constitutes financial infidelity under New Jersey law. Mark's attorney looked at him. Mark just nodded slowly. I don't want to fight this, Mark repeated, his voice hollow. She's right. About all of it. I made terrible choices. I destroyed our marriage. I got played by a con artist. I don't have the energy or the moral standing to argue for a better settlement. The mediation took 2 hours. By the end, we had a preliminary agreement that would be formalized within the week. I got the house, 75% of our joint savings, my full retirement account, and an acknowledgement in the divorce decree that Mark's conduct had been the primary cause of the marital dissolution. Mark got his 401k, 25% of our joint savings, and whatever was left of his dignity. We signed the preliminary agreement in silence. As we stood to leave, Mark looked at me across the conference table. I hope you find someone better, he said quietly. Someone who actually deserves you. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The legal proceedings against Sophia moved with a speed that surprised everyone. By late October, the state attorney general's office had built a comprehensive case that incorporated testimony from all 7 victims, financial records spanning 3 years, and evidence of systematic fraud across 4 counties. Sophia hired an attorney who tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor's office refused. They wanted to take this case to trial as a warning to others who might be running similar operations. In November, Jessica's law firm filed a class action civil suit on behalf of all the identified victims. The lawsuit sought full restitution of all the funds that had been obtained through fraudulent means, plus damages for emotional distress and punitive damages to deter similar conduct in the future. Michael's financial investigation revealed that Sophia had been running variations of this con for 6 years, starting in Pennsylvania before moving to Connecticut and finally settling in New Jersey. The total amount of her unreported income exceeded $400,000. The IRS filed separate charges for tax evasion. By December, Sophia's attorney was strongly advising her to accept a plea agreement. She refused, apparently still believing that she could convince a jury that her victims had willingly given her the money and that the relationships were genuine. Her trial was scheduled for March. Meanwhile, my own life was rebuilding itself in unexpected ways. The divorce was finalized in early February, 4 months from the Thursday afternoon when Mark had thrown the papers at me on the porch. The final decree awarded me everything Jessica had negotiated, plus a clause prohibiting Mark from ever claiming any future interest in the house or my inheritance. My career had taken an interesting turn. Word had spread through legal circles about how I had coordinated a multi-victim fraud investigation using public records research and strategic victim coordination. 3 different law firms had contacted me about consulting on similar cases. A legal technology company wanted me to develop training materials for their attorneys on how to recognize and document financial fraud. I had also started teaching that continuing education course I had designed, Financial Fraud in Personal Relationships, Recognition, Documentation, and Legal Response. The first session had 23 attorneys enrolled. The second session already had a waiting list. Jessica, Olivia, Catherine, Michael, and I continued to meet for dinner once a month. What had started as a coalition of victims had turned into a genuine, supportive friendship. At our February dinner, Olivia announced that she was divorcing her husband. It's not because of Sophia, she explained. It's because this whole situation made me realize that I had been ignoring problems in my own marriage for years. Sometimes it takes a crisis to finally see things clearly. Catherine shared that her husband had moved out, but they were trying therapy. "I'm not sure if we'll make it," she said honestly, "but I need to know that we tried everything before making a final decision." Michael's marriage, surprisingly, had survived. "My wife said she had already suspected I was having an affair," he told us. "Finding out that I was being conned instead of being unfaithful actually made it easier for her to forgive. We're in counseling, but we're committed to rebuilding." Jessica's marriage was also in counseling, with cautious optimism about the outcome. "My husband understands that I was vulnerable after handling so many difficult divorce cases," she said. "Sophia targeted that vulnerability expertly. He's hurt, but he's willing to work through it. I was the only one whose marriage had completely and utterly ended, but I was also the only one who felt entirely at peace with that outcome." Mark had moved into a corporate apartment in Newark and was slowly trying to rebuild his client base. 3 of his clients had left him entirely. 5 had stayed, willing to give him another chance. He had taken a significant salary cut to maintain his position at the firm and had agreed to additional oversight of his accounts and client interactions. He sent me an email in January, not a request to reconcile, just an acknowledgement of what he had lost and an apology for the pain he had caused. I read it once and then deleted it. Some apologies simply come too late to matter. In March, Sophia's trial began. All 7 of us testified over the course of 3 days. The prosecution presented the financial records, the text messages, the social media evidence, and testimony from the business consultant in Atlantic City who had taught Sophia how to structure her operation. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found her guilty on all counts: fraud, identity theft, tax evasion, and unlicensed pharmaceutical sales. Her sentencing was scheduled for April. She was facing a minimum of 3 years in prison, with a potential of up to 7, depending on the judge's assessment of her conduct. The civil lawsuit was settled out of court when Sophia's attorney finally convinced her that she would lose everything if it went to trial. She agreed to full restitution to all of her victims, payments that would continue for 20 years after her release from prison, garnished directly from any wages she earned. My mother came to visit the weekend after the verdict. We sat in my kitchen, the very same kitchen where this had all begun, drinking coffee and talking about justice. "You did something important," she said, "not just for yourself, but for everyone she victimized, and for everyone she might have victimized in the future." I just connected the dots, I said. "Anyone could have done it." "But you did do it," she replied. "That's what matters." I looked around my kitchen, my house, my space. Everything was quiet, peaceful, and mine. 4 months had felt like an eternity when I was living through it. But now, sitting here with my coffee, my mother's approval, and my hard-won peace, it felt like the fastest transformation of my entire life. I had gone from a humiliated wife being publicly evicted to a divorced woman rebuilding her life on her own terms. I had coordinated a multi-victim investigation that brought down a criminal enterprise. I had turned a moment of public shame into a masterclass in strategic justice, and I had learned exactly what I was worth, which was significantly more than what I had been accepting. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jessica. "Dinner next week? Olivia wants to celebrate the verdict." I typed back a reply. "Absolutely. My house. I'll cook." Because this was my house now. Fully, legally, and completely mine. The house Mark had tried to give away. The house Sophia had tried to claim. The house that had been mine all along, even when I had been too accommodating to insist on that truth. I opened my laptop and began to plan my week. Legal consultations on Tuesday and Thursday. Teaching my course on Wednesday evening. Dinner with my found family of fellow victims on Saturday night. A life rebuilt from the wreckage. A career strengthened by crisis. Friendships forged in fire. The morning light filtered through my kitchen windows, warm and golden and exactly right. I took another sip of my coffee and smiled. Justice had taken its time, but it had perfect documentation and it always collected every dollar it was owed. And I had learned to stand my ground, trust my instincts, and never again settle for less than I deserved. The house was quiet. The coffee was hot. The future was mine to design. And that was exactly how I liked it. This story of methodical justice was a wild ride. Hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Emily calmly revealed the trust to Sophia while she stood there with her moving boxes. What was your favorite moment? Tell me in the comments below. Don't miss out on more empowering stories just like this one. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. End of story.